The United States has just beaten Bolivia 2-0 with goals from Christian Pulisic and Fuller and Balogun. It's time to talk about Copa America, to talk about our takeaways from this match. It was a good, solid win. That's my first takeaway. It wasn't perfect, but here we are. We have 3 points. We've beaten the worst ranked team in FIFA in the tournament. Tom, my partner here, what did you think of the game? What were your first initial thoughts?
I mean, it's good to get a win. We got 3 points. We got the job done. Mission accomplished. It wasn't the cleanest performance. I think there's a lot to talk about, a lot to break down here, but I'm happy we got a result. We got the win. That's always job number one you need to do in a tournament like this. So, a lot to break down, but mission accomplished.
I mean, it's a competitive match, right? It's Copa America finally. Pretty much the biggest tournament between the 2022 World Cup and the 2026 World Cup. So to start it off with a win, again, even though it's against Bolivia, that probably the worst team in CONMEBOL, I still feel like we can't overlook that 3 points is 3 points. And from my perspective, like the foundation that we build from here on out going into the group stage, because we have Panama next. If we can get a win there, presumably we'll be on to the knockout stages no matter what happens against Uruguay. So just starting the tournament off with 3 points. I mean, this is Greg Berhalter's team that we're talking about. I feel like there were a lot of timelines where this could have probably been a conversation where we're talking about a 0-0 tie or a 1-1 draw after this game. So again, to have two goals, 3 points going into the Panama match, knowing that 3 points from that is going to mean facing Brazil or Colombia in the knockout stages. Again, I really can't complain about this. I know we'll have things that we want to take and build on from here, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. Is this is positive. I'm feeling very positive after this game. Are you feeling the same?
Yeah, I think so. I think my big worry coming in is, Bolivia is sort of known for being a team that's going to bunker. They're going to play really stout, resolute defense. They can run forever because they're used to playing at a stupid high elevation. So getting an early goal and wiping that worry of a bunker and counter team off the board completely is it's fantastic for me. It was exactly what I wanted to see. And after that, all the rest is just sort of gravy on top.
Yeah, so if my first takeaway was solid win, good 3 points, good start to the tournament, but there is a lot to work on still, what's your first takeaway?
My first takeaway is going to be Christian Pulisic, who was just a man possessed in this game. He was going crazy. It felt like every time he touched the ball, he was making something happen. He was cooking two defenders. He was hitting a lethal shot from distance. He was picking out a pass to spring someone in behind. I loved what I saw from him, and it's kind of crazy. We're not playing through him more. We're not giving him more touches. Almost every attack should be going through him at this point.
Yeah, especially because I think another point that we're going to talk about is the right side of our entire team, basically. Um, but Christian Pulisic and Anthony Robinson have such a good relationship on that left side. I agree with you. Like every single attack should start and end with Christian Pulisic. One of the things that I think we need to work on, and it happened a lot in the first half, and I am one of Tyler Adams' biggest fans, but I will say in this match specifically, a lot of times when we won that second ball and we had the chance to break, and especially with Pulisic on the left, having a lot of space to do that, Tyler Adams chose to play it safe and play it back to the defensive line. And I think we could have punished Bolivia a lot more if we had played it quicker, if we had transitioned more into that Pulisic land. But I think towards the end of the second half too, even towards the end of the game, Pulisic did have a lot of good chances. He created so much danger, and just from that first goal on, it was obvious that he's brought his form from AC Milan into this tournament. Obviously, he had that great free kick goal against Brazil, but it just feels like this is the Pulisic that we've kind of always wanted to see consistently, not just lockdown Pulisic at Chelsea or having the club form at AC Milan, but bring everything together, tie everything together to come into Copa America. And I feel like we need these types of performances against Brazil and Colombia from multiple players if we're going to go really deep in this tournament.
Oh, absolutely. We definitely do. But getting Pulisic started early, getting his confidence up, making it clear that this is his team, that he is going to be the guy for this team. He's kind of the guy from Milan right now. We know Leao's got all the plaudits, all the star power, but Pulisic was kind of AC Milan's secret weapon this year. If he can become that for the US, if he can bring that form over consistently and play just as well, then the sky's the limit for this team. We're going to need some more help from him. We're going to need, we've got other players to talk about here, but a guy who can go out and generate point 0.5 xg plus xa in a game that's what I want every time out of Pulisic.
Yeah, and he wasn't just the only player that played well this game. I know where my second point is about players that could have played better, but performances that I feel like this was one of those times where we will talk about how well the team played individually and together. Whereas again, a lot of times when we're coming back from a Greg Berhalter game, it's about how one or two players played well, but it was such a disjointed effort from the rest of the team. I thought that Pulisic was a level above everybody else, but there were so many other good performances within this match.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard not to talk about this game without talking about how well Jedi played or how well Tim Weah was playing, or I think maybe Joe Scally deserves a lot of plaudits for this game. There's a lot of players. Jedi's performance is going to go a little bit underrated, but he was cooking Bolivian defenders left and right down that left side. No one could hang with him at all. His pace was just crazy. It was good to see because he's put in a few rough performances for the U.S. recently. So I want to make sure he gets a shout out here because it was a performance that we needed him to have.
Yeah, he looked rough against Colombia, and if I'm being honest, it kind of worried me that we had Anthony Robinson on the left that got absolutely ravaged by Colombia, and then we had Joe Scally who had good friendlies against Colombia and Brazil, but he was kind of the question mark coming into this tournament with Serginho Dest being injured. It's also funny that you mentioned Jedi and Timothy Weah being kind of the next two after Pulisic because I see their benefit, like their goodness tonight was also from the amount of attention that Christian Pulisic needed from the Bolivian defense. So the fact that Anthony Robinson was on that left side with Christian Pulisic, and then the fact that Timothy Weah had so much space on the right to be found from long switches, and that's where a lot of danger came from as well. I think it was because Bolivia had to shift their entire team to focus on Christian Pulisic because of the way
Yeah.
he was playing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Every time Pulisic touched the ball, there were 4 or 5 people just sucking towards him to try and, you know, contain him. It just the gravity of him when he touches the ball is insane. Hell, if you go back and look at the behind the goal angle of Balogun's goal, Pulisic draws 5 defenders, which leaves Balogun almost wide open to, for the easy tap across and shot. Like that doesn't happen if Pulisic is not just, drawing the entire team towards him, magnetizing so many people with the ball at his feet.
I'll take 10 verse 6 every day, Tom, every day
Yeah.
of the week. All right, so that was your first takeaway. My second takeaway is that I didn't love what I saw from the right side of the defense in terms of playing out of the back. I do think Joe Scally had a much better game than Chris Richards. Chris Richards is really 80% of who I'm talking about with this takeaway. And it was surprising to me because he is kind of the player that we've seen have a huge glow up this year with Crystal Palace. He's starting to finally get the minutes that we want him to get in the Premier League at the highest level. And coming into this tournament, he's one of the players that you have the highest hopes for because he's kind of a future leader within that back line. But he let me down a lot with his passing. And maybe, I don't really want to blame the pitch for this one because everybody else was playing on the same pitch and it felt like the passing was crisp. It felt like it was the first game of the tournament, right? There might have been jitters, there might have been nervousness, there might have just needed to be some connection between the players playing in a competitive match together. But I felt by far and away Chris Richards was potentially the worst passer on this team tonight. And if we're going to unlock teams like Panama and Uruguay, Uruguay is essentially one of the best counterattacking teams in this tournament that we're going to face. And so that scares me if we're trying to unlock defenses from the back line and Chris Richards is underhitting balls and giving Uruguay or even Panama easy transition chances. That really scares me. Bolivia, like, we didn't really have to worry about them at all. I know it was 2-0. Obviously, it could have been 4 or 5-0, but to me, they didn't really create any danger. And so 2-0 was a pretty comfortable win in my eyes. But Chris Richards giving the ball away multiple times was really where I thought Bolivia could have killed us.
Yeah, they had 3 or 4 chances that really stemmed from not just Richards, but Ream had some moments that were questionable too. Richards, again, like 80% of the turnovers are going to go to Richards, but at least once for both center backs, I clocked them trying to dribble through 2 or 3 guys and getting it just picked off their feet and starting a counter the other way with just no help behind them. That is a mistake I saw against Colombia from 3 or 4 different players on the back line. It's a mistake that we've seen multiple times tonight. It is a worrying trend that we cannot have in these games against better opponents. So the passing is really concerning. Richards picked out some pretty horrible balls, not just the turnovers, but his long switches were pretty poor tonight, I thought, as a whole. I think he had a few that he picked out Jedi nicely, but we got to have crisper switches. We have to have better decision making at the back, and we cannot be dribbling into dead ends and starting counterattacks the other way at our middle in the center circle. This is just 3 of these things that are absolutely not okay at any going further in this tournament.
I don't know if you caught this because you were at the watch party,
Mm-hmm.
but on the commentator desk, they kept talking about how narrow the field was, about
Mm-hmm.
how it wasn't necessarily, excuse me, as wide as normal fields. Did you get to hear that?
No,
Maybe that's the reason why some of those long switches were a little long.
yeah, I definitely I didn't catch that on the broadcast. It would make sense though because we had like 8 or 9 switches that just were over everyone's head. Felt bad for Jedi because he kept trying to just sort of grab the ball out of the air to prevent it from sailing into the third row.
Even like Matt Turner's long switches weren't hitting anyone. He's someone where maybe I don't expect him to hit all those
Yeah.
passes every time, but Chris Richards and Tim Ream definitely. Nice. So Tom, what's your second takeaway from this game?
My second takeaway is going to be punishing Bolivia's mistakes, scoring goals when we have opportunities to score. I felt that both our strikers kind of let us down a little bit. Balogun, 3 or 4 just horrendous touches in the first 30 minutes. Pepe comes on and is almost cursed. He gets 3 or 4 good shots away, doesn't score. That last chance in particular, where the keeper's already on the ground and he hits it right at him, not a whole lot he can do there, but I would like to see both Balogun and Pepe be a little bit better about scoring when we have a dangerous moment and not letting us down in the crucial moments of the game.
It's funny because we were having a conversation within the Discord about Flo Balogun and his expected goal rate and how maybe expected goals are actually a good thing even if you underperform them because it means you're getting in the right places at the right time. And Flo is going to come out of this game looking better because he had the goal. If you're a striker,
Mm-hmm.
you miss 4 chances, you make one, you still have that goal. Like that's great. We
Yeah.
we won the game 2-0. He had that securing goal for us. But I agree with you. There were so many chances where maybe they weren't even for him to shoot, but it was just for him to make a decision. And it was like he got completely locked in his brain of what to do and what decision to make. And it killed whatever chance or transition moment that we had. But getting that goal, I think he'll come out looking the better from Pepe, who, um, man, I think a goal in this game would have done Pepe wonders for his confidence. I think it also would have eased. I'm imagining, we're recording this right after the game ends. I'm imagining that some of the more hardcore people will come out of this saying, this should have been 3-4 nothing. This is all on the players. Like, this isn't the best performance that we could have given. I don't necessarily, I mean, that's a take that hasn't even been put into the universe yet. I'm just assuming that will happen. But Pepe could have had that third or fourth goal for the U.S. And that one, especially like you mentioned, right in front of the goalkeeper, comes across. Just even the first chance that he had, probably 30 seconds onto him coming onto the pitch. It's he should score these, and we need him to be much more clinical. Again, I'm going to focus on him more in this instance just because Balogun did have the goal.
Yeah.
But if either of our strikers could be just turn that notch up 1 or 2 levels, that could give us so much security. That could give us so much more danger in these games. And against the Uruguays or Colombias or Brazils, where those moments are going to come fewer and far between, we need that
Yeah.
we need our strikers to just be so much more hungry to
Mm.
get that goal.
I do have the XG numbers up. You want to guess which striker had more XG?
Probably Pepe.
Pepe, and it's surprising. Pepe generated 1.5 XG and did not score. Balogun scores 1 on 0.23 XG. This is kind of a, yeah, like you said, a ball go in type of situation where Balogun was pretty bad, except for the one good touch where he doesn't even hit a great shot. He scuffs it, but he just places it in exactly the right spot and gets an unsighted goalie and gets a goal. And Pepe has some great chances and just can't get something to go in. And so, yeah, Balogun's going to come out of this game looking better. But Pepe, frankly, statistically played better, but just wasn't ruthless enough to finish the chances he got. The last chance, the one where he hit it right at the goalie, has an XGOT of 0.95. 95% of the time, 95% of the time that goes in, and he just hit it in the exact wrong spot, the one spot he couldn't put it. So,
And here's where XG is going to kind of be a little weird because Flo Balogun's game and why we're talking about him in the same regard is because of moments where a shot wasn't even taken because he didn't get the ball into the right spot. Whereas at least Pepe had the moments to take those shots. Yeah, I imagine that the last shot that he had right in front of the keeper, whether it was after the shot was taken 95%, probably before the shot was taken was probably zero point 0.7 or 0.8.
77.
The first shot that
I checked it. It was 0.7.
So the first shot was probably the other 0.75 to bring him to 1.5, you know?
Yeah.
He's going to get dinged because of those two moments, but I would just take that step back and say that Flo Balogun's numbers weren't as bad because the ball didn't even get to the shot because of his play. So I think we need to talk about both of them maybe respectively in a little different moments. Like, I think Balogun just needs to be more decisive and more hungry is not the right word, but just aggressive in making any play. It doesn't matter. Just make any play. Don't choose between five and get stuck. Whereas Pepe is decisive, but he's not getting the ball into the back of the net.
Yeah, no, and I the particular moment you're talking about Balogun making wrong decisions and not getting the ball in the right spots. The one moment that I want to point out is just frankly ridiculous because it's not Serginho Dest making the attempt. I don't know if you clocked the Rabana cross he attempted that sailed to like the 10th row. I felt like I needed to go order another drink right there.
Yeah, I feel like I got Men in Black flashed right there. Like, until you just mentioned it to me, I just erased it from my brain.
Yeah, that was one of those where I was like, did he really just attempt that? Just any other ball where he tries to loft that across, he's got four guys running onto it, and he just picks the worst option of everything he had.
You know what, to me, that's like, we're up 1-0, it's 10 minutes into the game, we're going to win this game easy, I'm going to do something cool. And it's probably not what it's absolutely not what he should have done in that first game in Copa America. I mean, we still needed some security goals there. Yeah. It wasn't like it was 6-0 and he was trying that.
If Serginho Dest tries that, great. All for that. Keep that up, Serge. But anyone else, I'm going to get mad at that shot.
Yeah. Balogun is a dribbler. I think if you look at his highlights, like, you're going to find moments where and he even had some in this game where he just turned players around and got into the box. I think probably right before the Rabona actually is when he like spun out of a defender and got into the right spot. But yeah, that finishing product. I mean, we have a young team. This is going to happen a lot. It's going to be a conversation that we have a lot because of our youth and because of that decisiveness that usually comes with age and experience. But Balogun, you can't be doing that when we're just up 1 goal. So my next and final takeaway from this game, Tom, is about the depth. And I wanted to talk about this because probably when we were leaving the 2022 World Cup, we lost against the Netherlands. And a big conversation around that match was how the players that had to come off the bench didn't match the depth that we needed to be at the level of the rest of our starters, or just a level below that. You know, we're talking about going from Josh Sargent to Jesus Ferreira, who started that game, to Haji Wright, who was on the bench and scored the goal against the Netherlands. But when we think about what the depth looks like at Copa America, to have the first 3 players come into the game that are Johnny, who's playing for Real Betis and is probably a Champions League level player. We're talking about Yunus Musa, who plays for AC Milan, is a Champions League level player. And we're talking about Ricardo Pepi, who scored tons of goals at PSV on a tiny amount of minutes. So what I'm just taking away from this match, and when I talk about building a foundation for the rest of this tournament and the group stage, is we have come a long way in terms of our player development and our player pool in just 2 years. And it could get better, right? We want a full team. We want a full 26 players or 23 players that can be at that level. But to know that the 5 substitutes that are coming on are all also coming from a top 5 league that play a critical role in their team, that gives me a lot of hope and a lot of uh, just knowing that we are making strides, whether it's, we can talk for days and days about if Greg Berhalter getting rehired was the right choice or not, but you can at least see progress in the depth of our team and the quality of players that are coming into the game when we make those first few substitutions.
Oh, absolutely. And I thought Yunus Musa and Johnny in particular were fantastic in this game tonight. Musa was just blowing by people left and right. It felt, I think I said this on, I don't know if it was on the It's Called Soccer Discord or not, that at halftime I wanted to bring Musa on because this just sort of was the game for him, a game where Bolivia was higher than they wanted to be and he could just carve people up. And having that off the bench, having someone who can just blow by 2 or 3 guys and start an attack was just so valuable in a game like this. It's just
With fresh
crazy.
legs,
Yeah,
too.
exactly. He was just running circles around people. Perfect. And, when you're bringing Tyler Adams off, when he's on a pitch count, having someone who can change the game like that is a huge deal. Having Johnny Cardoso on the bench is just spectacular. Having these guys that we can rely on to spell our starters, to keep guys fresh, to prevent a situation like the Netherlands, where we have 12 guys who are just dead at the end of the beginning of the match, and having to go 90 more minutes is just, it's a game changer for this team, for this player pool. It just sort of gives me a lot more hope going forward that we can do a lot of damage.
All right, before we get to your last takeaway, I just want to ask everyone that's watching to comment down below what your biggest takeaway was from this game. If you agree with any of our takeaways or if you disagree with them, that's perfectly fine. Just let us know down below. Tom, what was your last and final takeaway from this
This is
match?
probably the most controversial one because you and I disagree on this a little bit, but I thought Gio Reyna could have played a lot better. I just didn't see enough from him. I was playing a little slow. He did have a few moments where he took people on and earned some good fouls, but I just want to see more for him. He can be a game-changing player, and I just didn't see that from him tonight.
And I just disagreed with you a little bit because I thought he showed quality in this match, and I think it was more about people are expecting him to have a groundbreaking amount of impact on the game. Whereas where he's playing right now for the US as kind of more of a two-way midfielder, and he did have a lot of defensive responsibility in this game, you're probably not going to see as much productivity or impact on the final third as you would if he was playing as a 10 or on the right where Timothy Weah plays. So get it, he drew 2 yellow cards from Bolivia. He had a few good runs into the final third. He had, I think, a through pass that got into the box. I think there were these moments where you saw what quality Gio Reyna could bring us, but I think because of where he's playing on the pitch right now for the US and what we're asking him to do, like I actually wrote about this in my Substack article recently, is how kind of our next wrinkle in Greg Berhalter's style and system is to put a Gio Reyna or Yunus Musa into the fullback spot when the fullback rotates and overlaps up. And so you're not going to see Gio Reyna in some of those final third spaces. You're going to see him, passing it out of the back and making sure that we get the ball into those more dangerous spots. And then he's being kind of a late runner into the final third without a defender marking him. So I think it was partly that he didn't have the greatest game of his career, but it's also, he's not necessarily playing in an advanced role because Weston McKennie can do that. And we're asking him to drop back and be part of the buildup. So people can argue till the cows come home if that's the right way to use Gio Reyna or not. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's necessarily correct to say that Gio Reyna didn't have an impact on this match.
All right, that's fair. I'll take that. Yeah, I kind of still sort of expect him to be higher up the field, which I'm not sort of responding as fast to Berhalter's sort of shift in usage as fast as I probably should here. Do you think it's the right decision to have Weston McKennie be higher than Reyna, or would you rather have McKennie as the progressor and Reyna higher up where he can impact the game a little bit more?
It's so tough because naturally I think all of us would say that Gio Reyna is the better attacking player. But if I really think about it, Weston McKennie in a lot of his club teams and for the US has kind of always been this player that floats towards the top of the box. And we saw some of his quick feet today, like the goal that was offside started because Weston McKennie was able to dribble through two or three players and play that through ball to Timothy Weah. It was a little bit late and Weah was a little bit offside. But I think that's the reason why you would see Weston McKennie higher up the pitch. But we know that Gio Reyna could do all of that. So it does confuse me a little bit that I think Weston McKennie is a, a better defender. I'm trying not to go, too global of like what the system is, but essentially when you leave one of your midfielders back in that fullback spot, you're one of the other benefits is that you are better set up to stop counterattacks if you do lose the ball in build up. And so for me, like Weston McKennie is a better defender than Gio Reyna. So if the ball is lost in that build up, then wouldn't you rather have Weston McKennie back to be a defender rather than Gio Reyna? And wouldn't you rather have Gio Reyna higher up the pitch than Weston McKennie? But the formula worked, and if that's kind of how they've seen it fit, that's great. Again, I think one of the best things that comes out of this is that Gio Reyna, when we have the ball solidly in that final third, Gio Reyna is able to come into the play without a defender marking him because he's kind of a late arrival. But those are such niche situations that you're trying to build from your play that, again, I just think naturally my first instinct is that Gio Reyna would be a much better player higher up the pitch.
Yeah, that's sort of my instinct as well. I thought Gio was fantastic defensively too. Nothing to ding him there. It's just, um, such a interesting, wrinkle to see, something that I'm not sort of used to, and I've never seen Gio really deployed in this way before. So it's a sort of a unique situation we find ourselves in where Reyna is playing this far back. So it'll be interesting to see if this is the full game plan going forward, or if we adjust particularly against better opposition.
Yeah, and especially against, because Gio did kind of play this way against Colombia and Brazil. Like his heat map was as a left back almost, like left center midfield. And against Bolivia, it was weird too because Tyler Adams could have played that role, right? He could have been the one that's dropping back into the back line. But I actually think because we scored early, Bolivia threw some numbers forward and it kind of threw us off our game because if you've done any scouting on Bolivia, you're going to think that they're going to drop really deep in a 4-4-2 and they're not really going to press. And in the fifth or sixth minute, they have five players against our back line. I just think like we were a little bit confused and surprised, but it was also because we had that early goal. And for whatever reasons we did anything, I am not a mind reader. I don't know what Greg Berhalter's thinking, but the fact of the matter is we won the game pretty comfortably. Bolivia didn't create any danger. I do agree with you in part that Gio Reyna could have absolutely had a bigger impact on this game. I just don't think we can take away that he did draw two yellow cards. He was a player that was involved in a lot of the build-up.
All right, that's fair. I'll take that.
Yeah. So looking forward to the game against Panama. Again, it depends what happens to Uruguay versus Panama tonight, but I'm fully expecting Uruguay to come away with the win. That would mean that if the U.S. beats Panama in the next match day, they would be through to the knockout rounds no matter what happens against Uruguay in that last match. So, Tom, based on tonight and what you've seen, what are you expecting to see from the game against Panama?
Just win. I don't really care how we do it. Just win. This is tournament play. This is group play. What I need to see out of this group right now is that I need to see us winning these games when we need to. And with the toughest team in our group coming up last, there is nothing more important than securing qualification to the knockout round, not needing a result going into that Uruguay match. So, I don't really care how we get the job done. I just need to see this group of players recognize a must-win game and go out and get the win.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. It gives me a lot of comfort that we're going up against Panama in the second game. We should come away with a comfortable victory. I don't want to say easy because nothing in tournament soccer is going to be easy. But knowing that the knockout stages are likely going to be against Colombia or Brazil, and both of those teams are teams that I'm scared to face, it doesn't really matter, what the result is against Uruguay if we beat Panama. We lost 5-1 to Colombia. We tied Brazil 1-1. This is a rematch either way if we do get to the knockout rounds. But I think getting the win against Panama, securing your way into the knockout rounds and using Uruguay as a way to tune up for either or Brazil or Colombia, that is a great situation for us to be in, knowing that, we're one game away.
Mhm.
Like, yes, we need to beat Panama, but going into the knockout stages, which I fully expect us to do, you're playing in a one-off game in a tournament at home. This is really our chance to take the next step as a soccer nation.
Oh yeah, absolutely, I agree. And I this is where I think I come back around to tonight's performance and the lack of ruthless finishing. Where there's a scenario, if we don't get the job done against Panama, we somehow Panama forces a draw, which would be a respectable result for Panama, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. Again, this is tournament play; a lot can happen. I don't want goal differential to factor in. Panama is going to get a Bolivia team that's going to be pretty much out of the running after 2 matches. They're going to have a chance to pour in some goals, and we're going to be playing a Uruguay team that frankly scares me. And so I don't want goal differential to come into play where we could both be sitting on 4 points at the end of 2 matches and or at the end of 3 matches, and goal differential is going to matter as to who goes through. That would be the one situation where I think we don't go through. That would be a crushing result, and it really comes down to avoiding that situation by just taking Panama out of the equation. Again, there's a big opportunity here, like you said, one-off games to really show that we can take it to the big guys and pull a surprise win out. But to do that, it all hinges on avoiding the nightmare scenarios, and there's a lot of nightmare scenarios that you can start to think about if Panama result goes against you. So I'm gonna keep
You're
focusing on
right.
that because that scares me more than anything else right now.
You're bringing me back down to earth. I appreciate that, and I think it's all needed from us thinking that we're gonna get past Panama, and we're already looking ahead to Uruguay in the knockout rounds. So we will be back after the game against Panama. I'll be in Colorado, so we'll figure out what that timing looks like. But we will be back here on the channel to break it all down for you. Subscribe, comment, like the video, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
See you guys.